So Steve McGrew versus Brassman. Steve McGrew coming down with the cold. Brassman coming down from Boston,
where it is also cold.
where it is cold.
Is it colder than us?
I don't know. Who knows?
It's cold.
They have the ocean.
They're both in this basement, which is also cold.
The Brassman currently ridding the Commonwealth of raiders.
What?
It's a Fallout 4 reference? What?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
So on your left, you'll have Steve McGrew on Paradoxical Outcome.
Has Steve won an invitational?
Steve? I don't remember. I don't think so. I think he's
No.
come close a few times. He's definitely top 4.
Yeah,
He's top 8 a couple of times.
He is
but
pretty consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve is
Placing.
a solid technical player, and I feel like he is one that I worry about because
he's silent.
I know that he learns from his mistakes. He's like a raptor, okay? Like he's out there testing doorknobs and stuff, and eventually he's just gonna get through and kill the kids in the kitchen.
Well,
What? This is good flavor
He's not
commentary.
gonna
no, it's great.
recognize
It's
that-
great.
not gonna recognize that
It's just
reflection.
not sure how far to take that. Steve's in the kitchen eating
Got the
kids.
silver
I
spoon.
see you're reading the spell, but I'm not going to go for it.
Brassman playing Survival to Survival. We have seen him on screen before. The last time we saw him, he used 3 serum powders to start the game.
Yeah, and he defeated Dwayne Haddix on stream, which he had to do once again in the previous
That's
round
right.
of top 8.
Yeah, Brassman and Dwayne Haddix face off once again in the top 8. Brassman coming out victorious yet again. Brassman undefeated in matches so far.
Brassman clearly gave Dwayne a flawed deck
Yeah, on purpose.
that he knew the flaw in his style in order to.
What does this deck lose to? Only me. But Brassman here sitting in the doomed right-hand seat. So I think we've evened the score here a little bit.
Yeah,
and
he
we're
was
gonna-
definitely left seat before.
Gonna see what happens.
Someone just fell upstairs.
That or Buster.
I hope everything is okay.
Oh, I hope it's not Buster.
I hope it's not Buster. I will check. If it's a
I'm
Buster.
more worried about the
I will
dog
check
than
my
any
book.
of my friends. I'm sorry. Buster is a nice old dog, and I love him.
I know Dwayne is rubbery. He fell down the stairs at my house and made it out alive.
Yeah, your stairs are dangerous.
Yeah, that's why they have a black diamond sign at the top of them now.
Good. So Brassman opening with a bunch of moxes and Collector Oof. Solid.
That's pretty good.
Steve McGrew on Paradoxical Outcome. Flummoxed.
What do I do?
Yeah. What do? Here we go. Malort again.
Oh no.
Or the sample cups? The sample cups
No.
are out once again.
No. Why? Jeez.
I really think we should just give people Listerine.
Just bring a Malort bottle full of Listerine.
Enjoy. Yeah, I agree on the PO being a little bit
Alright, that
overrated.
was somebody else. That was not Buster. He's good.
Okay, I'm glad Buster's all right. I agree that PO is a little bit overrated. I think the
Is it?
frustrate. Yeah, well, this is what Justin is saying in the chat.
Sure.
And I my read on it is it's not necessarily an overly winning deck, but when it starts winning, it's obnoxious.
Andy
That's
doing
the
a
problem.
fast chaser of hams after his Malort.
Gotta do what you gotta do. So we got Bazaar now, Brassman on the heavy Arabian Nights mana base. We've discarded Vengevine.
That is not an Arabian Nights City of Brass.
Well, no, but I mean you know what I mean.
Chronicles?
Gold border.
It would be safe from City in a Bottle.
Oh, is that a Brandon?
Oh, Steve McGrew, you are in trouble.
Oh no.
Shy.
Get punched. So Steve McGrew now facing down Hollow 1 Vengevine, Collector Oof, and Deathrite Shaman.
This is indeed what this deck is supposed to do. And it's doing it. I've heard Hollow One is pretty good.
Woof.
Ugh. Times 2. Ooh.
Dear Steve,
And
my statues give you their regards.
Steve saying,
yeah.
"What am I supposed to do
Let's
here?"
look here. Let's see what happens. And
So I think there may be a difference between Paradoxical Outcome as a top 8 deck and a Paradoxical Outcome as a tournament winning deck.
Explain the difference.
Well, I mean, Paradoxical Outcome is powerful, and if you play enough of it, like
You're gonna win.
it naturally lends itself to making top 8s, but it's hard to finish out the top 8 because you still have to win those 3 matches in a row.
Right.
And then you run into something like this where it's like,
I,
Collector Oof, and I can't play spells.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's
You play a bunch of these,
obviously it has good matchups
yeah,
versus a lot of
yeah,
things too. So
okay.
it's not
It's always better to be lucky than good, though.
correct, especially in Vintage where the luck is magnified so greatly. So Brassman up a game.
Quick victory for Andy there.
Yeah, Brassman up a game. Playing survivalist survival, leaning on Collector Oof against. I assume he was leaning on Collector Oof versus Paradoxical Outcome. Steve McGrew really didn't seem to do much there except some digging.
So,
Yeah.
what are some of your other favorite 1v1 Magic 1995 decks?
Oh, I have some good ones. So the scary thing in that system where you put all of the decks that are available in one pool and the computer picks one at random, and then I play gauntlets essentially. So I pick a deck and then the computer puts, I think it's 21 opponents against me in
Okay.
a row. So I have to face them down.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that came with the game, any of the decks that came with the game are just terrible.
Yeah.
There are very few of them that are good. The best ones are like mono black and mono white.
Some of them are, like, kind of annoying. Like the Unholy Strength versus Will-o'-the-Wisp
Yeah.
can be kind of a pain in the butt.
There's a bunch of decks that have good openers, so it's like, yes, the Will-o'-the-Wisp, turn 1, turn 2, Unholy Strength, attack you for 4.
Yeah.
Very strong.
Yeah.
Turn 1, Flying Men, turn 2, Unstable Mutation, attack you for 6, also, or attack you for 7, also very strong. But it's like most of those, honestly, Unstable Mutation, a lot of times you can just wait it out and the creature dies.
It just fizzles, yeah.
But it's just a weird melange of weird decks.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff in that just doesn't make any sense.
Right, and they don't, they're not optimized, so very few of them are playing power. Nothing is abusing anything too much.
A lot of them are doing really bad color splits with lands that don't really support it very well.
Yeah. So anything that came with the game is just bad. So the decks that I have to worry about are like decks that I have put together, and I have put together some, joke decks that I play. So like 4 channel, 4 fireball, 4 disintegrate. Mana supporting those and some other stuff, and it's like that is a legitimately scary deck in the hands of the computer because it's like, oh, it just killed me.
It just knows it can figure that one out.
There's
Is there mana batteries?
Yeah, well, not in that deck. But there's a deck that I put together that's 4 Black Vise, 4 Wheel, 4 Twister, 4 of every Mox, or 4 of the Moxes, 4 Lotus, Brain Freeze or Brainstorm, Soul Ring, Mana Vault.
Mm-hmm.
That deck can get obnoxious pretty quickly. It cycles your hand too fast. Like you can't set up plans because your hand's probably radically different, and you just take a ton of damage from Black Vise and then die. So things like that are just hard to beat. Workshop decks are harder to beat because if you're doing anything with creatures, all of my workshop decks have 4 Triskelion in them, which is just like,
yep.
That's probably the best card in the whole environment, at least
really?
Creature-wise, I think, because it's so often just card advantage.
It's a big creature and it can do a lot of things.
Yeah, it's very flexible. So those are the scary decks to beat, to face off against. But obviously sometimes I play the workshop deck too, and it's interesting. I should have started tracking some of this, but it's interesting to note which decks I can go through the entire gauntlet with.
Mm-hmm.
Because certainly I have built decks that I cannot. The workshop deck is a pretty regular, go all the way through all 21 decks.
Update from the other top 4 match. We're still in game 1.
I figured.
That's not an update.
That's hardly an update, but here we go.
It was, I went there, it was Charles had an oof, and Chico was played Dak.
Exciting.
With a bunch of mana in play, so.
Yeah, so the other matchup that's going on right now is Charles's Bug deck, which we saw last round, versus Jason Jaco's PO deck, which we saw in round, 2 or 3? So he's kind of a standard 4-color build, 3-color build.
I think he's, well.
I was thinking it was 4, because I thought he had
I don't think he's running white. Yeah, that's the only one I saw.
No, he had white.
He has white?
He definitely has white. I was wondering if he had red or black, but I think he does.
Oh, red for Dak.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
It's whether he has black. And I don't know.
Black or man?
Yeah, I don't know.
Not red.
Anyway.
Might be 5.
Could be 5. I would be playing at least.
Looks like we are in for Andy, and now he's playing. Now that's what I call music, the DVD. The game has stopped.
Steve was like,
this is
we are
and a dance contest has broken out.
All right, let me go adjust the camera.
Is that the key?
I cannot tell.
The key or Manifold?
Oh, it might be new Manifold. Get an old Manifold, Steve. Come on.
Come on, Steve.
No one can tell what that is. And Andy following up with another collector oof.
Ouch.
Because oof.
Yeah, jeez.
Man, I'm glad that card exists. I'm super glad it's green. I'm super glad it's green. Can you imagine if it were white? It would just like fits in with all of the other things that are obnoxious in white. It's like that goes straight into white Eldrazi. It's a top? Doesn't look like a top.
All right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I don't believe it.
Then go.
Thanks.
Can't
I didn't recognize the new art for top.
Can't tell me what to think. I feel like that's a really do-nothing opener against Collector Oof.
I mean, certainly it looks worse against Collector Oof. Hopefully he can draw a counterspell here and get rid of it. That would be the answer, right? Whoop.
Oh, there it is.
There you go. So, Collector Oof gone.
Definitely a worthwhile play to invest some resources in.
Yeah, getting top back.
Another fetch.
This is very intense, as this may decide who gets to choose Jimmy's Corvisa bag in order to lord it over him.
I feel like no one's going to get it.
My guess is that Jimmy is going to, because no one actually cares to take it.
Wait, what?
Ooh, Tinker. We're getting tinkered on.
Oh my.
Steve McGrew, tinkering.
What would
I mean,
be
I suppose it would be Blightsteel, but
Is
I
it
mean,
Blightsteel?
it could be a Sphinx or something. What would be good here?
It's
Yeah,
a Blightsteel.
So Brass Man has to contend with that. That is a big creature.
That's a big dude.
Wait, he's playing white, huh? Okay. Top deck, sword?
Yeah, I mean, I don't honestly know what Brass Man would have. I would expect swords would be somewhere.
Oh, no.
He's going to start with an Ancestral, though.
Ancestral seems like an okay place to go, but I mean, he's got to put either a bunch of creatures on the board or be able to bounce, or
I have a suspicion
Swords.
he's just going to die.
I mean, he's going to draw a bunch of
Those
cards
are
and then
ours.
die.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to draw a bunch of cards and then die.
I mean, he could. Okay. But I mean, I don't think he wins
did not
there, but
resolve
he needed
his
to.
Bazaar.
He needed to survive a turn, probably.
Oh, he's playing green.
Well-
he could have fogged.
Get wrecked.
So yeah, I mean, I don't even know. if you're playing,
That is the first Tinker we've seen today.
Mm-hmm. Not the first Blightsteel, but
Not the
Tinker.
first Blightsteel, but the first Tinker.
But the yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, if you're playing Brassman's deck, do you even bring in answers for the Tinker?
No.
Like, I mean, you're not gonna bring in
No,
Swords to Plowshares
yeah,
or something.
Cage just,
I don't think so.
Cage will shut off his own deck.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna do Cage or anything. I don't think Steve might be playing something like Lavinia, which might give your swords or something more uses, but I kind of doubt it. I figure you just live with the Tinker death.
Yeah, just win instead.
Yeah. So I mean, it really could be that Steve McGrew just rampages through this on the power of a bunch of cold medicine.
Robo Trip.
It's a bold move.
Just robo trips his way through the top four.
You we're 1-1 now.
Oh
You
yeah.
need to do your magic.
All right. And that right hand chair
Ha ha! I
Continue.
chose the correct seat.
continues to be a danger. Sounds like Charles lost. Sounds like Jaco is finals. Let's see if
Can you play contract from below in your 1v1s?
I mean I could.
Alright.
I don't.
They don't. They have anti, but
Yeah, 1-0 Jacob.
No, I mean you can do whatever you want.
can do whatever you want, man.
Yeah, I mean pretty much you can do whatever you want. Oh, one of my favorite decks is 22 Relentless Rats and some other stuff. Because I figure when Alpha was printed in Relentless Rat, or yeah, is it Relentless Rats? Plague Rats.
Plague Rats.
Plague Rats. When Alpha was printed and Plague Rats was first existing, like they obviously intended for you to have more than one Plague Rat or more than 4 Plague Rats.
Yeah. Does it work?
It's really good.
Is it?
Yeah. It's hard to imagine situations where you need more than 7 Plague Rats.
Sure. I can't.
Because, attacking for 49 is great.
Yeah. 7/7/7
Yeah.
seems pretty
It's
solid.
big enough to get through all the walls, and it's basically 22 Plague Rats, 4 Howling Mine, a Mind Twist, a couple of Terrors. That's pretty much it. And lands. Moxes. Demonic Tutor. Demonic Tutor for Plague Rat is surprisingly satisfying. I'm going to tutor for this 5/5. Serum Powder.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, really, I feel like this particular game, this match at this point, could go very much either way.
Yeah. That's what it seems like.
Brassman's deck is very explosive. I think he has a decent number of sideboard options against Steve. Steve is, playing a combo deck that has a lot of power but needs a lot of pieces to come together. If he expends too many resources, either digging or trying to stop Brassman, like he's not going to be able to put a reasonable effort in his own game. So here we go. Once upon a time,
Oh
says
my God.
Brassman. What a card.
It's fantastic.
It's free and it only looks at 5, so it's probably fine. Here's Vengevine.
Vengevine. That's Did we see a Bazaar in Andy's opener?
I haven't. I mean, I imagine you would do Bazaar first. That's I don't know what that land is, honestly. But Collector Roof, what's up?
Jeez.
Bring it! Nice deck, P.O.
Andy whipping it out all 3 games.
It's the Serious Vintage Preview card that didn't get restricted.
Yet.
Not yet. And did have, 30 people do the preview.
Yes. That was fun.
That was fun.
Yeah.
For me.
That was fun.
Steve McGrew just running out Moxes as a, I don't know, sort of like a middle finger sort of thing, where he's like, look, this is what you've done to me.
I felt better about that when I found out that Andy put just about as much editing work into it as I did.
Andy put in more time to that than you did, I think.
So I couldn't really feel bad.
Too hard. Yeah, if you haven't listened to the Serious Vintage preview article of Collector Oof, you really should, if only for the stinger at the very end.
Which is Andy's submission.
Which is Andy reading his word for the preview.
It's
card.
a perfect item.
It's great. Serious Vintage available on Eternal Central or iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.
Similarly, So Many Insane Plays. They're on like episode 107.
So Many Insane Plays has done so many insane episodes.
So many insane episodes. Jeez. They're consistent.
They're very good. Well, and they do regular things every time. So like every time a new set comes out, they have a they have a thing.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a commander set, they talk about that. Kevin and Steve, very much good friends of the show. I'd like to do a crossover episode with them at some point.
That would be fascinating.
I think that would be fun.
Have us on their show for a set review. Oh God, these idiots.
Yeah, I mean, I think
This card is awesome.
I think we could team up for something. It doesn't need to be a set review or anything. I think it would just be a fun, vintagey thing. Whew, I don't know.
What's that?
What is that?
I honestly don't know.
Isn't Thalia, is it?
Oh, is it? Might be.
I think he said he was playing Thalia.
Good for him. I haven't played Thalia.
And
Hump. Woof.
oh,
Thalia 1.0.
it is Thalia.
Hello.
Oh my. Well,
Take
this-
14, Chief.
This feels bad, man. Feels real bad.
So this is exciting. Steve McGrew suddenly very close to death. I think he has a Riftstone portal in his graveyard. Oh, he has Spirit Guide. That's it. Yeah, so, our exile areas are not quite visible all the time. And, yeah, he's got that.
Wrath of God?
At instant speed with 2 mana?
Yeah.
Seems good.
There's one that does
I mean,
that.
he's got, like, Echoing Truth, right? Like, that's...
I don't think Echoing Truth does it.
Well, it gets 3 of these Vengevines off the board.
It does that. That's all it will do.
Man. So, yeah, if you've been watching, we've seen Brassman on stream a couple times today. He's playing just a very aggressive non-survival build of survival. So he uses Serum Powder to get rid of his, to find the good hands that he wants, and then he's got Bazaars. He's basically just leaning heavy on Bazaar and being able to put Vengevines and Hollow.
I would imagine he
Bizarre
is pretty...
Yeah, right.
He's pretty vulnerable to graveyard hate, I would think.
I
More
would-
than regular survival.
More than regular survival, but probably less so than Dredge.
Sure.
So it's like-
Yeah, agreed on that.
We're-
He's not playing Dredge.
Right, he's very much in the space of Dredge,
He's-
somewhere in between, right?
He's
This-
playing magic cards.
Yeah. He's playing Dredge the way you would play Dredge.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when this deck came out and you were like, hey, Jeff, I think that you would like this deck. And I agree, I probably would like
Yeah.
this deck. If you were to when you asked earlier what I would play,
yeah.
Survival's a pretty good contender.
Mm-hmm.
So you get Mox and then fetch.
Except I don't own Bazaars. Just one. Which is the worst.
Oh, right. You borrowed him from Josh. That's it.
Yes,
That's the
that horrible nightmare.
I know, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring it up.
It's okay. That's why I don't borrow cards anymore.
So you don't even play anymore.
That's true, but I definitely don't borrow cards, even when I did play. Ugh.
Valencio!
Oh! Story story time. Okay, so at the first Gen Con, maybe second Gen Con first Gen Con that I went to.
It's not the first.
Josh Chappell brought his dredge deck. Obviously, I played a lot of dredge at the time, and I played Wizards in the first event, and I didn't do great. And then I decided to play dredge in the second event, so I borrowed Josh's dredge deck.
2 mistakes.
And I could have sworn I put the dredge deck back on his bag in the room when I finished with it, but he did not find it. And so we spent about a day not knowing where the dredge deck was, and when everyone else went to the Gen Con dance that day, I pretty much tore the whole room apart, and it was a big room because we had like a corner
Yeah.
that was absolutely massive, and it had dudes. We had 8 people
Yeah.
in the room
Yeah.
that year, so
Mhm.
there was stuff everywhere, and I just looked for that deck everywhere, and like, I mean,
Chico and Charles
it
were
wasn't-
too.
it wasn't worth what Dredge is worth now, but it was still several G's that I did not have at the time.
Yeah, right.
If I lost that deck, but I did eventually find it just underneath something random where it had been moved from where I put it. So yeah, that was not a really good feeling, as I for probably a couple hours searched around the room for that deck and did not find it.
Yeah.
Don't want to go through that again.
Yeah, never do that again.
Nope, not doing it.
So Steve balanced the board away. Brassman took his turn, drew a Bazaar, and passed. And Steve is now playing, probably resolving this Paradoxical Outcome for 3. Brassman is Bazaring in response. He's trying to find something. I'm not sure even what he gets.
I believe he got wrecked by balance.
He got-
is what he got.
He got wrecked by balance. So, this is Fossavega? So he's going to get rid of a couple of the targets there.
So when I said that Steve needed Wrath of God, and you said for 2 and an
Yeah.
instant speed, he got one of those.
He got one of them. Yeah, right.
All right.
So this is
Unrestricted balance. Jerry will be happy.
Balance is a nutty card.
Balance.
That's another one of the decks that I have built in Chandelar is Rack Balance.
Oh,
Ooh.
I bet that's
I don't
fun.
know- I don't
bet
know
that's fun to play.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone has played the a draw engine that is Sylvan Library, Bazaar of Baghdad, Library of Lang. But it's pretty fun. And
Wait, so you discard and then you spell the string on top?
you can store your spells on top of your deck.
Oh.
And
Because
you-
of Library of
and
Lang.
Because of Library of Lang, and you basically just draw whatever you need, and you can filter so many cards per turn.
So you during upkeep of the top 3,
Yeah,
draw 1, Bazaar,
You-
draw 2.
you can actually
Put 'em
you can
back.
Bazaar in response to the Sylvan Library, so you're looking at 5 cards.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's great. Highly recommend that. It's a fun deck to play. I was working on a vintage build of Rack Balance with As Foretold and what's the new balancing the suspend balance card.
Restore balance.
Restore
Sure
balance.
balance.
So when As Foretold came out, I was working on a new Rack Balance deck, and I couldn't quite get it to work. It was close. I had 4 or 5 different builds that all kind of did different things, and never quite there. So Brassman dug and found a hollow one. He has discarded the 3 cards to Bazaar.
Steve is
and
at probably sub 8 life, so Hollow 1 is a very serious threat.
Yeah, hollow one is big here. They're talking about making sure that Brassman discarded cards enough to get hollow one into play, or yeah, make it cheap enough to cast, so he can cast it. Here it is, hollow one. Supplies.
It's big.
Steve has accepted that hollow one exists,
He's not happy
which
about it.
is really the first step to a new religion.
17 to 3 Brassman.
Yeah,
That's rough.
Steve took
So it's
14 in one attack, so
It's not 2 swings, it's 1 swing.
yeah. Steve needs an answer or a win.
Steve's general posture at this point suggests he has neither.
This is Steve's general posture in most cases, but
More deflated in this case.
Yeah, like I said, Steve, whatever the outcome here, Steve will remember this event, and
That's depending on the
Brassman may not.
Brassman,
the roller tested or not.
yeah, Brassman will be forever etched into Steve's mind.
Yep. We're
thinking.
anything could happen here.
We're thinking.
Anything.
About stuff. Life is
Grinding,
life is a highway.
grinding to a halt.
Necro for 3. Oh, wait. Hold on.
Yeah, the numbers at the top of your screen are their places in the top 8 standings. So Brassman not at 1. Steve McGrew at 3 life, not 4.
And Brassman at 17.
Yeah. Jimmy still out there talking.
You don't say.
Yeah. Thanks all for watching. We're in the middle of the top 4 of the Hazard Series Invitational number 5. So Steve drew and passed.
Going to Andy's
Brassman
turn?
is bazaring on his upkeep and then drawing a turn. And he's going to...
He put out a Basking Rootwalla. Put out a... Oh.
Second hollow one, which I think is interesting here because wouldn't you attack... Oh, no, that's why. Here's more stuff.
Snapcaster and
Blightsteel.
Blightsteel. That's...
Blightsteel, not a good answer.
No.
So I think, from what I'm gathering, it sounds like Brassman versus Jayco in the finals, which is a replay of the finals that we had at TSI The Land back in May.
It's also a replay of round 5